All right. What's up, everybody? So, this is gonna be a quick little video discussing the over 4,000 responses to the recent OU tiering survey. This is just a survey asking the community about our thoughts on the OU metagame currently, our thoughts on potentially problematic Pokemon like Goldengo and Annihilate for some of those guys, and then most importantly, our thoughts on Terastallization and what we should or shouldn't do about the mechanic. So let's not waste any time. Let's just go straight into it. First question, and most important question: do you feel any tiering action at all is needed on the topic of Terastallization? So, I guess something to note is there's like two sections of every response. There's the qualify section, and that is a smaller group of players, players who were either top 250 on the ladder or made round three of like the No Johns like Smogon release tournament. So that's 143 players for the qualified section, which is a really small really small sample size. Like 143 out of 4K is like small, but these are these are like high ladder players, so it's something to definitely look at. And then there's just like the general public section. So for the qualify section on this question, 61.5% said that yes, some sort of tiering action is needed on Terastallization, which is like a decent contrast to the general public where that is only 43%. So almost a 20% difference, or like an 18% difference. Honestly, it's kind of surprising. 57% of the player base just thinks that Terastallization is fine right now and doesn't need to be touched. Even if you want to just look at the qualified responses, still like 40% of players feel the same way. They don't think Terastallization needs to be touched at all, or restricted or anything. It's like a good chunk. So definitely a lot of people actually are messing with Terra right now. Don't think it needs to be touched. But looking at the next question, which was like a follow-up question saying, if you answered yes, do you believe it should be restricted or outright banned? So roughly half of the 60% that said that it should, be changed or banned in some way, think it should just be banned outright. So that's about 30% of the qualified players who actually think Terra needs to just be like banned. But when you look at the general response, it's a lot different. Only like 26% of the 43% that said it should be touched at all actually think it needs to be outright banned. So that's only about what, 11-12% of the general player base that actually thinks Terastallization should be banned, which is actually just not that much. So the vast majority of people think Terastallization is salvageable to some extent, at least like with restrictions or something. But it's definitely like pretty divisive. Like there's some people who think it needs to just go entirely. There's a lot of people who think that it's probably a little bit too strong, but it's it could be saved if you do the right restrictions. And then over half the player base actually just thinks it's fine right now, which is kind of crazy to think about, because I know a lot of people, including myself, going into the generation thought that this mechanic was just going to be extremely broken. And I mean, low-key it is, but like it's not like last generation Dynamax got suspected. It was not controversial. It got smoked. Everybody was like, get this out of the game. This is broken. This is insane. And Terastallization is definitely not on that level, which is why you have so many different people with completely different opinions on it, which makes this so very interesting to see what's going to happen going forward. But looking at this is, if you answered restricted, which of the following restrictions do you find the most appropriate? You could select multiple. So they had a bunch of different options here, like ban stab Terra, ban non-stab Terra, 1 Terra per team, and other, which a lot of people, including myself, put, because then you could, people have their own crazy ideas of how they think Terra could be balanced. But let's look at some of the big ones that a lot of people responded with. So you have here ban non-stab Terastallization and ban stab Terastallization. So let me talk about these two, especially the first one, since that one seemed to be the more popular choice. I hate this. I hate this idea a lot. I think that limiting the amount of types that you can terastallize into kind of defeats the purpose of the mechanic. Like, the whole purpose of the mechanic is like, oh, I could turn my Pikachu into a fairy type. I could go turn my Garchomp into a water type, or go turn my Tyranitar into a ghost type, or turn my Charizard into a dragon finally. Like, that's like the whole, that's the whole purpose of the mechanic. So saying that I can only transform it into one of the types that I am already, obviously is going to, like, it's like, what's the point? You know, maybe you should just, if you got to do that much, if you have to alter the mechanic that much, maybe you need to just get rid of it. The other thing is, I feel like it also just favors offensive Pokemon way more. Like, it's just going to turn into, hey, I'm just going to have my Dragapult or my Shenpower Chi-Yu or Roaring Moon or whatever just get a free adaptability boost, and that's the way everyone's just going to use it. Like, obviously there's like some defensive utility to being able to like turn into a monotype and get rid of some of your weaknesses, but it's going to be abused way more by offensive Pokemon. I feel like it's just boring. Like, it's just such a boring mechanic at that point. I don't even know why keep it if you're going to do that. Like, it's just completely changing the way the mechanic works. And then banning stab terastallization, like, I guess it's the opposite of that. It's like, oh, you don't want people to just get adaptability boost and stuff, but I mean, it's still like weird to me. Like, don't get me wrong, banning non-stab terastallization is like, it would make it more balanced. I get it. Like, I get it. Because the biggest thing with Terra right now is, oh, the unpredictability. You could go turn your Pokemon into 1 of 18 types. It's crazy. How can I prepare for this? How can I, you know, account for this? And obviously, if they can only go into 2 types, I get it. It's less crazy. But, I mean, at that point, it's not even the same mechanic. Like, it's just not the same mechanic. That's why I don't really like it that much. I don't like that idea for a restriction that much. Now, limit terastallization to 1 possible user per team is actually the most popular one here. And that's one that I don't know how I feel about. I like this one more than the other one, but like, on one hand, you could say, like, oh, it doesn't really solve the problem, because it's like, the Pokemon can still turn into anything, and I don't know which of their 1 Pokemon it'll be, and when they'll do it, or anything, right? But the thing is, if you had a designated Terra Pokemon, you would start to see a lot of the same Pokemon Terra consistently, because you only have 1. And defensive Terra is good, but usually you Terra defensively, like, reactively. Like, usually it's, this thing's in front of me, so I'm reacting to this thing in front. It's like, I have a Goldengo, and there's a Qianpao in front of me. So I'm turning into a fighting type because naturally that Qianpao wants to crunch me. You know, that's how people use Terra defensively. But if it's like, oh, I just have 1 Terra in my builder, you're probably just going to use something that abuses it really, really hard. And you're going to see the same kind of things. There's the same thing that happened with Z-moves, right? With Z-moves, technically, anybody could Z-move. Your Toxapex could Z-move. Your Ferrothorn could Z-move. But people didn't use it that way. They knew which Pokemon were going to abuse it the best. And those are the Pokemon that were consistently bringing Z-moves. So it would be something that over time, people would get more used to. And people would be able to probably tell, if you played Ultra Sun Moon, there's a lot of times you look at the team and you're like, I already know who's Z at team preview. And it'd probably be like that for Terra a lot of the time. So, also, just not having the option to Terra literally anything on your team at any point does make it a little less crazy. But, I mean, I don't know how I feel about it, but this one to me feels like something I could at least see being tested. Because I could see this maybe fixing some of the problems. But I'm not sure. Now, as for other, what I put for other was just show the types on team preview. So at least it's like, hey, they can't go into 1 of 18 types. It's, hey, it's their actual just regular dual type or monotype, and then their Terra type. So at least that makes it, it still does add another layer, but it's a little bit less crazy. Like, I'm not predicting for a million things, but I mean, maybe even just having the option to switch your type at all is going to be too much. I think that's something they should look into, though, especially with the recent news that VGC is essentially doing that with open team sheets. But I'll talk about the VGC stuff in another video. I don't want to get into that too much. But yeah, I feel like for me personally, I think looking into how you can potentially balance Terra is what I would want first before you even think about banning it. I would exhaust all options. And I think that they will do that because there's not actually that many people that want Terra just like straight up banned right now. So we'll see though. We'll see how they do with that. But looking at some of the Pokemon and what people thought about those, let's look at that. So regarding Pokemon, we had questions on 5 individual Pokemon in alphabetical order. The scale for ranking each Pokemon was provided and is as follows. 1 indicates balance, 3 indicates potentially ban worthy, and 5 indicates ban worthy. Like, yo, get that out of my game. So yeah, let's look at that. So Annihilape's up first. And the average qualified response of the 143 was roughly 3.5 out of 5, and over 110 of the 143 total responses were 3 or higher on the scale. So most people feel that Annihilape, or this is just qualified, most of the qualified players feel that Annihilape is at least potentially ban worthy. I mean, I can't say I disagree. I think I put 4 on this. I hate this mon so much. I think this mon just it borderline invalidates fat teams to me. It's so painful to play against. Rage Fist is foolish. Honestly though, it would be kind of interesting to see like if some of these people who put one or two because of the whole like Rage Fist versus Annihilate debate, like which is broken. I don't think it really matters to me. Because I'll say the same thing about Cyclozar later with the whole Shed Tail Cyclozar debate. For me, if these Pokemon are problematic, I'd worry about getting rid of the Pokemon. And then down the line, if Earthworm or Primeape or whatever proves to be problematic, then you can look at the moves. But right now, you can't tell me that Primeape or Earthworm are ban-worthy Pokemon right now. So for me, at this moment, you have to like isolate it to these mods. But that's like a whole nother debate. But yeah, it seems like a lot of people think Annihilape is at least potentially ban-worthy. Looking at the general responses though, it's pretty similar. 3.08, so not as high, but seems to be a little bit more balanced. But still, like what, like 70% of players think it's like potentially ban-worthy. So you know, it's pretty similar. Chi-Yu, out of qualified responses, roughly 3.5 out of 5, so the exact same as Annihilape. 105 out of the 103 responses were 3 or higher, so pretty similar overall. A lot of people think this guy needs to go too, and I get it, man. I get it. You know, I'm not even gonna pretend. This thing is like ridiculously powerful. Like the only quote unquote downside is it's only 100 speed, but it's just so strong. Like Specs is unholy. It just destroys everything. Scarf to it kills everything anyway because it has like effectively like 196 special attack or whatever. Like this thing is just disgusting. This is like a top 2 Pokemon in the metagame to me, like for sure. Like this thing, I'm not 100% sure if I'd vote ban for it, but I think it's hard for me to say that this thing doesn't at least deserve to be looked into. Like it's absolutely insane. And looking at the general public, once again, pretty similar. Yeah, about 30% of players are like, nah, it's okay. But, you know, a good chunk of people think, nah, this is at least, like, potentially ban-worthy. 3.14 out of 5 is the general response. So, yeah, once again, like, pretty similar takes on Annihilape and Chi-Yu. Like, people think that these bonds are definitely, you know, definitely at least worth looking into. Now, Cyclozar, I'll be real. This is the one that I think needs to go the most. I don't know if I could be convinced that sub-pass in one move on a Regenerator mon with that speed could possibly be fair. Like, I don't know if I could be convinced that this is going to be fair, ever. It's super degenerate. It enables so much broken stuff. It's, like, I think this mon is complete nonsense. But it seems like not everybody thinks that, because it's 3.3 out of 5 for the qualified responses with only 100 of the 143. So still most people do think like it's potentially ban worthy, but a little bit less than the other guys. And when you look at the general public, it's pretty similar. In fact, there's actually more people, like it's like almost 33% of people who actually think it's fine. But there's actually more people who think it's just straight up ban worthy. Yeah, there's actually, I guess this is like a little more polarizing. I guess people either think he's fine or they think he needs to go. Like, yeah, because there's more 5s here than the other two. But yeah, I don't know. I think, like I alluded to earlier, like some of this might be about the whole like Shedtail versus Cyclizar thing. I don't know if Orthworm is proven to be problematic yet. I mean, that mon doesn't have Regenerator and 121 speed, so I don't know if it is. But my thing is, like, we're not going to see a lot of Orthworm until this thing is gone. So we couldn't even know if Orthworm is, like, a problem until the thing is gone, because no one's going to play it. They're just going to play this thing. So, I mean, we'll see. This thing, I mean, all of these look like they probably at least deserve suspects, but especially in the case of Annihilate, you need to wait till Terra. I mean, Chi Yu to an extent too, because this thing likes to Terra into Darker Fire and go crazy. But, I mean, for Cyclizar Terra doesn't really change anything for it, but you might want to at least see what we do with Terra before you worry about banning any of these mons. I think this is especially the case with Espatra here. So, for Espatra, 3 out of 5, 90 of the 143, and as you can see, it's a lot more leaning towards Espatra being okay. Now, I do think Espatra is a stupid Pokemon. I think it's really, really strong, but I will say with Espatra, at least, like, it's very clearly dependent on Terra to me. Like, without Terra, this mon is not ban worthy at all. So you can't even look at Espatra at all until you know what you're doing with Terra. And it seems like a lot of other people agree, because 2.56 out of 5 is a good chunk lower than these, because these were all in the 3 to 3.5 range. And then Goldengo. Goldengo's the last one. So Goldengo, you know, the golden boy of OU currently, with 3 out of 5 and 90 of the 143. I'm actually surprised. So Goldengo actually less than like Chi Yu and Annihilate and Cyclizar, but a little bit more than Espatra. Actually, for qualified players, it's actually the exact same as Espatra. They actually feel the same about it. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, Goldengo, I don't know if I don't know if I think he's broken, but he is centralizing for sure. And not like centralizing, like a lot of people throw that term around when it doesn't matter, or when it's not like applicable, because they'll be like, oh, Landers T was centralizing because he was very common. But like Landers T didn't really change the way you team built. It didn't really like change the way you played the game a lot. Like this thing completely changes the way you play the game. It completely changes the way you build. It invalidates entire play styles. This guy's running the game right now, but I don't know if he's like broken in a traditional sense. It's weird. I think how you feel about Goldengo, probably a lot of it just has to do with like how you feel about its impact on the tier, because obviously it has an impact. But I mean, it's probably one of the biggest reasons offense is as powerful as it is right now, which a lot of people might actually like. So, it's interesting, and it seems like, yeah, similar responses for the general public as well. But 4 of these 5 Pokemon actually have a 3+ average. So there's a lot of Pokemon that people think that at least need to be looked into, for sure. Like, it's not like everybody's like, nah, these are all okay. A lot of people are like, yo, honestly, you might need to look into them, but there's nothing here that's like 4+ or anything that's like super obviously like broken to most players. So, which makes sense to me. There's a lot of things running around right now, and there's a lot of things to look at. But I don't know if there's any one thing that stands out as like obviously an issue. But yeah, I mean, pretty interesting. I think that the Terra stuff's a lot more interesting than the Pokemon stuff. Like, I'm surprised it's like people are this divided on it. Like, people have no idea what they want with Terra, or people know what they want, but there's no consensus at all. Like, do we restrict it? If we restrict it, how do we restrict it? Do we just leave it alone and let it rock? Do we just get rid of it entirely? Like, nobody knows right now, which is why I feel like this is something that isn't going to be. This isn't something that's going to be decided soon, but it's something that they're going to look into soon, because we saw today that, you know, we're going to have a potential suspect soon. It seems increasingly likely that we are approaching the first suspect of the generation, and the subject of it is set to be Terastallization. As alluded to previously, the plan is to make it a 2-prompt suspect. It will likely be a single-time vote, blah 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 blah. So, wait, that's actually interesting. So, ranked choice voting for a suspect test. I don't know if they've ever done something like that before. So, I guess the options here are outright banning Terastallization, limiting Terastallization to a single user per team, showing Terra type at team preview, and limiting Terastallization to previously held stab only. Which, yeah, these are like the most popular responses for restrictions. I wonder on the suspect ladder if they will. I mean, how do you do it though? Do you just have like a ladder with each of these different options? Or do you do it like 1 week we'll try this restriction and 1 week we'll try this restriction? Because I feel like you would need to play it a little bit to really know like if that's what you for sure think is the best. But yeah, it does seem though that likely by the end of the month we're going to be looking at some kind of suspect, which is, you know, that's crazy. I have no idea. I have no idea what will happen. Like, it's not like I said, it's not like Dynamax where everybody knew Dynamax was gone. Like, everybody, we played with it for like 3 or 4 weeks and we're like, yeah, this is going to be gone. There's no way. This is insanely broken. But this, I have no idea what will happen. I think it'd be a huge mistake to ban it at this point in the generation. I do not think it's been proven to be broken enough to do that right now. Restriction, I do think long term it'll probably be broken, but that's why I think restrictions is probably the best like chance we have of being able to preserve the mechanic at all. But, you know, we'll see. I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of news on all of this coming up real soon. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap this video up. Let me know, what are your thoughts on Terastallization? Do you think it needs to go? Do you think it needs to stay? Let me know in the comments. Like the video, subscribe, do all of that, and I'll see y'all next time.